Oh my goodness, is it just me, or does it feel like there is so much buzz and so much chatter out there about this thing called the lightning process? It might be just me, and perhaps it's been on most of your radar for years. I'm sure it has been, at least for some of you. But for me, it feels like lately, all of a sudden, it's just coming at me from all angles. Whereas before, I wasn't really aware of it at all. But it might just be kind of like, you know, when you buy a new car and you feel like that car isn't all that common on the road, but then you buy it and all of a sudden it seems like every third car on the road is your car. Now that you're looking for it and you're aware of it, it's all around you. So that might be the case with the lightning process. It made its way on my radar and now I'm noticing it more. Which gets me thinking, I actually don't know how I could have missed the lightning process for so long, because I did so much research during my chronic fatigue syndrome or ME/CFS recovery, and I tried so many different things. I really felt like I tried virtually everything under the sun. It's crazy to me that I somehow missed this one thing. And the only thing I can think of is that it came into popularity, or maybe it gained more visibility once I was already at the stage of my recovery where I'd kind of given up on the outside world having much to offer in terms of my ability to heal. Because in those first couple years, I did tons and tons of research and spent tens of thousands of dollars and just soaked up everything I could. And it really didn't seem like anything out there in the world was going to be able to help me. So I started relying on myself and listening to my body and doing my own experiments, and I wasn't latching on to too much of what was out there. So perhaps this is a newer-ish thing that has developed, hence my missing it. Or maybe it's just the name. I don't know if it's just me, but something with a name like the Lightning Process doesn't really sound like something I should take seriously for dealing with serious chronic health issues. So I may have just heard the name actually and discarded it and thought that sounds like rubbish, move along. Although when I think about it, I mean, I did things with names like constellation therapy, which by the way involved consulting the actual dead and having them help me heal my body and recover from this illness. So I wasn't really one to discount things on their name or for them sounding a bit wonky, because I suspect, as most of us with ME/CFS can relate, you're in such a place of desperation that you're willing to try just about anything. But anyways, so the lightning process, for whatever reason, I'm just getting caught up now. So I found out there was a book and I bought the book. It's called An Introduction to the Lightning Process by Phil Parker, who is the creator of the lightning process. And I proceeded to devour this book. I think I read it in 2 or 3 days. It's not a super long book. I think it's 282 pages, but still, I was just so curious to learn what this mysterious and apparently insanely effective chronic fatigue syndrome recovery method was. What it is, well, it starts out with a bunch of success stories. So people who have used the lightning process to achieve all sorts of amazing things in their life. And although the book does talk about a lot of different things that you can use the lightning process for, one of the focus areas definitely is ME/CFS. So these success stories in the book, had I not already personally interviewed people who had recovered using this process, I might have been skeptical because they really are incredible. But the people that I've talked to, you know, I've heard their stories, I believe them, and I do believe that it has a lot of potential. So that's where the book starts. It is a tough one to swallow, though, I find, even having talked to people, and I do believe them, of course, but it flies in the face of everything that I know about ME/CFS recovery. Because in my experience, recovering from chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, is tough. It takes a lot of work. It takes a really long time. It's a really intensive process. There was no quick fix in my experience. There was no fast way out of this. But just because the lightning process is fast, it does not mean that it isn't true. And I think we humans are skeptical about so many things, especially when they're new and we don't fully understand them and we tend to write them off. And if the lightning process truly does work this fast, it's clearly something that needs to be embraced. I would hate to toss something aside purely out of skepticism when it had the power to transform my health and my life so much. So, as described in the book, the lightning process is designed to teach people a way to use the connection between the brain and the body to improve their health. So the book also talks about the phenomenon of neuroplasticity, which is the ability of the brain to rewire itself through how it's used, and the physical emergency response, or PER, which the body creates in response to any threats. So the book goes on to say that the lightening process will help you to discover how much more influential you are in your life and health, more than you might ever imagine. So the book says that the lightening process is going to teach you how to master a whole new set of tools that will allow you to retrain your body, brain, and mind so that you can be healthier and happier. And the book talks a lot about the placebo effect in a way to get you to understand the power of the mind to heal the body. So the placebo effect, as I'm sure most of us know, is when we take something expecting a specific result, or we do something expecting a specific result, or something is done to us and we expect a specific result, and then we get that result simply by that expectation. So it's the standard by which, new surgeries and medications are validated. They needed to be tested against the placebo effect. So they do, placebo-controlled double-blind studies, meaning you have two groups where one's getting the actual pill or the actual surgery or treatment, and then the other one's getting a fake one, a sugar pill, or something that is in fact not at all the intended treatment or drug or whatnot. And then the people implementing the study don't know who's in which group. The people that are taking part in the study don't know who's in what group, and then we just see what happens. And whatever drug or surgery that people are trying to get approved needs to perform better than those that were in the placebo group. We need to see essentially that this drug or whatever can work better than the power of our minds to heal ourselves. There's a great book I read a while back that talks a lot about this. I highly recommend it. It's called Mind Over Medicine, and it goes through a lot of studies where looking at the placebo effect. And there are all sorts of studies where people are given like chemotherapy, or they're told they're given chemotherapy, but they're actually not. They're not given anything. But a good percentage of the people, all of their hair falls out because that is their expectation with chemotherapy, and they think that they're getting it. Or people get fake knee surgeries. They will tell people that they're getting a knee surgery, but instead what they'll just do is put them under, maybe put a cut in their knee and then stitch it up so it looks like they had surgery, and then that's it. There's no actual surgery done on the knee. And in some studies, that fake surgery actually does better than the real surgery. So the book, Phil Parker in this book points out that our minds are incredibly powerful, and they have the ability to heal all sorts of amazing things in our body. And what the lightening process is supposed to be doing is giving you tools to harness that power and put it to work yourself. Okay, lightening process book, I'm with you so far. This is all sounding kind of logical and makes sense. And the book also talks about how somehow we became used to assuming that one thing works for one problem, and cures or recovery always have to be specific for a bunch of individual things. Like I've mentioned in other videos, a lot of us think of our bodies like cars, and when we look at healing, we look at it like a broken down car. Like, what's the broken part? How do I fix that part? What supplement do I need, or what therapy do I need, or what surgery to fix that part? And in some ways, I'm sure that is effective, but in many ways, it seems that it is not, because our body is a very complicated, synergistic, connected organism. And in my experience, treating your body in a holistic manner and supporting its ability to heal itself is far more effective than trying to find that one specific cure for each specific symptom or each specific ailment in your body. And I think we think sometimes that if one treatment or one approach can work for multiple illnesses and diseases, that it somehow invalidates those illnesses or diseases. Like somehow they weren't really all that serious. But we know, and we see from the placebo effect, that our brain can cure all sorts of really serious stuff. So just because one approach can heal something, it doesn't mean that it wasn't serious, and it doesn't mean that it wasn't real. And the book very much points out how, to emphasize that ME/CFS is not an illness that's all in the mind. So even if you can cure it with your mind, it still was a very serious, very physical illness. And the book also points out that there is definitely accountability placed on the people who come to the Lightening Process seminars, and that what they do with the tools they use will influence the results that they see. But the author is also very clear that this is very different than blame. So if the lightning process does not work for you, that does not mean that it is your fault. It just really drives home that what you are getting is training, not treatment. So you're going to have to put in some work and take some ownership for that recovery process. All right, lightning process, I am still with you. And the book also boasts some really impressive success rates with ME/CFS recovery. It says in a recent survey, this is coming directly from the book, 81.3% of 1,092 people with ME/CFS reported that they felt they had recovered after the Lightning Process seminar. 81.3%. So the book introduces two psychological processes that can cause trouble, but that can be helped by the lightning process. And one is the physical emergency response, and the other is the destructive spiral. So the physical emergency response, as far as I can tell from reading, is essentially our fight or flight system, which is also in line with a lot of what we hear. When our fight and flight system is engaged in our body, and in our modern day world is engaged far more than it was ever meant to be. The environments that we evolved to thrive in would not have required the fight or flight response all that often. We see the saber-toothed tiger, we deal with it, we move on with our day. But these days it's, traffic and pollution and social media and all pandemics and all different sorts of things that are setting it off. And this book is talking about how when this system is engaged, our parasympathetic nervous system, which is what we need to be turned on, is turned off. And the parasympathetic nervous system is what we need to heal. But the fight or flight response triggers our sympathetic nervous system. And when this is engaged, we are not healing. It is focused on immediate short-term survival, and anything to do with long-term survival is put on hold. And if we spend too much of our lives with that system engaged, you can see how it makes healing from chronic illness really challenging. So the lightning process is supposed to give you the tools so that you know how to effectively switch off the sympathetic nervous system and switch on the parasympathetic nervous system so that you remain as much as possible in a state where you're able to heal. And the book also introduces the topic of neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is the ability of the brain to rewire itself, and it forms a vital element of the lightning process. So the lightning process will address well-defined anxiety pathways and work to rewire them and train the brain to act differently in those situations. And in the book, Phil also talks about how the lightning process addresses things like, are people living lives that are in line with how they truly want to be living? How big is that gap between who you want to be and the life you actually want to have and where you are now, and addressing, how to close that gap and make your life more in line with the kind of life and the kind of person that you actually want to be. Doesn't sound crazy. And also the book explains that Neurolinguistic Programming, or NLP, is also a part of the lightning process. And it explains that NLP is an offshoot of hypnotherapy and psychotherapy. So there are many different elements to the lightning process that involve various ways to retrain our brains to function in ways that are more conducive to us thriving. I found that much of the book is actually spent providing evidence of why things like these brain retraining programs work. Much of the book seemed to be intended to make a believer out of the reader, to buy into the whole process. And it did feel like a bit of a sales pitch in multiple parts of the book. I'm really just trying to get you on board with taking the seminar. But if you're someone who is considering this and you just really don't understand at all what the lightning process is, this book would be a good way to get an introduction to it, because it obviously gives more information than what I've shared here in this video. I can only share a little bit. So if you want to just get a general understanding of what type of program you'd be signing up for, this book would be really good for that. And it also does explain that the lightning process, as I mentioned earlier, takes place over 3 days. It's 3 sessions, 3 consecutive days, with the sessions lasting 3 to 5 hours, and it's done either in small groups or one-on-one. And your practitioner will also have some follow-up appointments with you after the training to provide support and ensure that you are on track. And I have spoken to people who have taken the seminar and are doing fantastically. basically saved their life. So those kinds of results are really hard for me to argue with. So I'll link the website for the Lightening Process in the video description, and that would be the best place to start, I would imagine, if you wanted to learn more. And if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to still learn a bit more about the Lightening Process, I'll link a video up here on the screen. If you haven't already seen it, it's an interview that I did with a very lovely woman named Jody, who herself fully recovered from ME/CFS by using the tools that she learned in the Lightening Process seminar, and is now a certified Lightening Process practitioner. There's the word I was looking for. Practitioner herself. So that's all for today. Thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit. I hope you found this helpful or interesting, and whatever you're facing, whatever you're going through, hang in there, keep going. I know that you have got this. Take care. So I certainly want to, physical emergency response. And when is the physical emergency response?